Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing great. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Malin, and today I'm gonna do another meal prepping video. You seem to like my last one, which was focused on a budget-friendly meal prep, and if you haven't seen it, I'll link it in the description box and maybe put a card somewhere here if you want to go check it out. But this one will be a little bit different because I won't be doing a set breakfast, lunch, dinner in the way I did in the last video. I'll be preparing some components that you will be able to mix and match in different ways to build your meals throughout the week. So there will be a soup, 2 hearty salads, marinated and baked tofu, hummus, what else? Some chocolatey overnight oats and a seed sprinkle that you can top off all your meals with. And now you might be thinking that this sounds like a lot of stuff to be doing, but don't worry, it might sound a lot or fancy or whatever, but it's pretty simple and straightforward. And I just want to show that you can prepare really yummy, healthy, delicious food for pretty much a whole week in just about 2 hours, and it doesn't have to be boring either. And to make the most of our time, I'm going to be sort of multitasking in this video to show you that it's best to sort of use the oven, the stovetop, the counter all at once to make the most out of your time when you're meal prepping. So I'm going to be doing everything in the order that makes most sense for time efficiency. And first off, we're going to press this tofu. And to do this, I'm going to place my firm tofu in a bowl with an edge. And then I'm going to place another plate on top of it. And on top of that plate, I'm placing 2 heavy books and a jar of whatever weighs most in your kitchen. And then I'm just going to set it aside and leave it to press down on the tofu so that the liquids come out slowly for about half an hour. Then I'm heading over to my oven to preheat it to 225 degrees. So now that the oven is preheating, I'm going to prep some root veggies. It's winter after all, so I'm going to do some roasted carrots and some roasted beet. The carrots are going to be spicy with a North African spicy paste called harissa, and the beetroot is going to go in a quinoa salad. If you wanted to be a little bit easier on yourself when it comes to this meal prep, you could definitely buy some pre-cooked beetroot in the supermarket rather than roasting it yourself, but roasting it yourself will be more cost effective. It also gives it more flavor when you roast it. But I do have a few of these hacks to make the meal prepping easier for yourselves, but I'll tell you when it's relevant. So now let's prep the veggies. You can peel your carrots if you want to, and then half them or quarter them depending on their size. Then I'm placing the carrots in a roasting tray. I drizzle a bit of oil on the carrots, and I'm gonna season them with some spicy paste called harissa. I'm also drizzling in a little bit of maple syrup, and then I sprinkle over some cumin seeds. I finish off with some salt and black pepper. I give it all a good toss to coat before I place it in the oven. The carrots are going to roast for about 30 to 35 minutes or until they're tender and a little golden around the edges, and I'm just going to toss them about halfway through the cooking time. Then to prep the beetroot, I definitely peeled those and I cut off the grubby end before I chop it into about centimeter wide cubes. I place my cubes on an oven tray and I drizzle it with a little bit of oil. I season it with salt and black pepper before I toss to coat and spread it out evenly on the tray. Then I roast them in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes or until they're tender, and I toss them about halfway through as well. Next up, I want to get some lentils and quinoa cooking on the hob so that we can let them cool a little bit before we add them to the salads they're going in. Like I said, the quinoa is going with the beetroot in one salad, and the lentils are gonna go with some green peas and a gremolata, which I'll show you later. We're just gonna pop these on, and here's another little tip. If you want to make this easier on yourself, don't cook the lentils yourself, just buy them in a can. But we're gonna cook them now, so let's do it. First off, I'm going to rinse off half a cup of lentils. I've got poi lentils here, little green lentils, and once they're rinsed off, I'm popping them into my pot along with 1 cup of water and 1 teaspoon of vegetable stock powder. For the quinoa, I'm adding half a cup of quinoa into my pot along with 1 cup of water. I'm popping the lids on both of my pots. I'm bringing them both to a boil, and then I reduce them to a simmer. And the lentils will take a little longer than the quinoa, but I just keep an eye on them, and when the water is all disappeared, they are done. Something that I like to have every week in winter is soup, so I definitely couldn't leave it out of this meal prep. And we're gonna make a potato and broccoli soup, but I'm using frozen broccoli to make it really easy. It's actually a really easy soup in general, but yeah, I also like to have green sort of dotted out throughout my day, throughout my week, and this soup is perfect for that. I heat some oil in my pot and then I add in the onions. I season them with a little bit of salt and saute them for about 3 or 4 minutes until they start turning translucent. Next, I add the garlic into the pan and saute for another minute or 2 until it turns fragrant. Then I'm popping in my potatoes, the water, and the stock cube, and I bring the whole thing to a boil. Then I let it boil on a low to medium heat for about 15 minutes. While the soup is cooking, I'm going to drain my tofu that's been pressing and prepare the marinade. I pour out the water from the tofu and I cut it in half, and then I cut each half into 4, so I have 8 slices. Then in a shallow dish, I combine 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar, 1 tablespoon rapeseed oil, 1 teaspoon sriracha hot sauce or any other hot sauce that you like, 1 teaspoon toasted sesame oil, 1 teaspoon maple syrup, and 2 garlic cloves that I've minced. I stir this all up, and then I place my sliced tofu into the marinade. I let this sit for about an hour, or you could leave it overnight for even more intense flavor. So while my quinoa is cooling, my soup is cooking, and the tofu is marinating, I'm going to make the breakfast that I planned for the week, which is a chocolatey banana overnight oats. I love oats in the morning. I think it's filling and yummy, and doing it like this makes it super easy and super quick in the morning. To make 4 servings, I start by adding 2 cups of oats to a large container. Then I'm adding in 4 tablespoons of milled flaxseed, 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder, unsweetened. I'm adding a pinch of salt. And then for some natural sweetness, I am going to chop up some dates. So I remove the pit and then I just chop them up into the container. As I said, this is going to be banana flavored, so I'm mashing up 2 bananas and then I'm going to just pop that into the container as well. Followed by some oat milk, or you could use soy milk, and I'm also going to add in some vegan yogurt. I'm using an oat-based one. Then I mix all of this up really well to combine. I'm putting a lid on it and then I pop it in the fridge and leave it at least 1 night before I eat it. In the winter I like to buy frozen berries that I defrost, so I grab a packet of mixed berries and pour them into a container, and then I just leave them to the side until they thawed before storing them in the fridge. Then I turn my attention back to the soup and I add in the frozen broccoli and allow it to cook with the potatoes for another 5 minutes. In the meantime, I chop up some fresh parsley that I'm going to add into the soup in a minute. But first, once the broccoli is soft, I use a stick blender to blend the soup. I don't blend mine super smooth, I leave a little bit of chunks. And once it's to my liking, I add in the parsley. And I'm also going to add some nutritional yeast to add a little bit of like a cheesy umami flavor to the soup. Finally, I season it with some salt and black pepper and mix it up really well. now that the soup is all finished with a bit of seasonings, I'm going to set it aside to cool, and then you can just pop it in a container and keep it in the fridge for like 4 or 5 days. And while that's cooling off, I'm going to prep the salads, and I'm going to use the beetroot like I said, and using root veggies in the salads that you want to keep for a longer time is actually really good because they stay, you know, yummy. Even if they don't stay fresh, they're still yummy after a few days. It's not like they're gonna go soggy or anything like that. And also I'm gonna combine them with the quinoa like I said before, and this is really great way to build like hearty salads that you're gonna stay full on and to get lots of nutrients in as well. And the same with the lentil salad that I'm also going to prepare now. That gives an extra boost of protein to any meal throughout the week. I'm adding my quinoa to a bowl, and at this point it's cooled a little bit, same as the beetroot that I'm adding to the bowl next. Then I go ahead and I add some finely chopped red onion into my bowl. Then to add a little bit more flavor to the mix, I'm taking some fresh mint leaves and I'm just ripping them up into the bowl. Finally, I drizzle it with a little bit of olive oil, followed by a splash of apple cider vinegar. I season it with salt and black pepper, and I mix it up really well to combine. To make the lentil and pea salad, I start by pouring some warm water over frozen peas. This allows them to thaw a little bit faster, and I set those aside while I make the gremolata. So I start by chopping up parsley really finely and adding it to a bowl. Into that same bowl, I zest a whole lemon, and then I also grate in a garlic clove, but you could of course use a garlic press as well for this. Then I squeeze in the juice of half a lemon and I drizzle in some olive oil. Before adding in my cooked lentils that have now cooled a little bit. Finally, I drain the water from the peas and add those to the bowl as well. And I give it a good mix to combine again. At this point, my carrots are nicely cooked as well and have cooled for a little bit. So I drizzle a little bit of lemon juice over them, I give them a good toss, and they are ready. Now these 3 components are done, and I'm changing the temperature on my oven to 200 to prepare for the tofu. I'm grabbing the marinated tofu and spreading it out on an oven sheet, and then I bake it in the oven for about half an hour at 200 degrees, flipping it after about 20 minutes. So we're coming towards the end of our meal prepping session, and I'm going to make some hummus, or actually I'm using butter beans, so it will be more like a bean dip, but much like a hummus. And I'm also going to massage some kale, and kale is a perfect like winter green that keeps long in the fridge even after you massage it. And I like to massage it because it sort of makes it a little bit more tender and easy to eat. And yeah, with the hummus you could totally buy hummus pre-made from the store to make it easier for yourself, but it is more cost effective, like many things, when you make it yourself, and it doesn't take too long, although you do have to clean the machine after. But let me show you how I do mine. First of all, I'm adding my butter beans to my food processor. Then I'm squeezing in the juice of 1 whole lemon, followed by 4 tablespoons of tahini. Next, I peel a garlic clove and I slice it into the food processor. Then I season everything with salt and black pepper. Finally, I'm pouring in a little bit of water because I'm doing this oil-free, which works really well with butter beans as a base. And then I just whisk it up in the food processor until it's really smooth. Once my hummus is all done, I'm going to massage my kale. So I start by removing the leafy part from the stem, and then I break the leafy part into bite-sized pieces. I drizzle the leaves with some olive oil and I season with some salt. You could also do this with lemon juice instead of oil if you prefer. Then I go ahead and I massage the kale for a minute or two, not too vigorously, just until it becomes tender. The last thing I'm prepping are some spiced toasted seeds. I often call these my umami seeds, and like I say always, if you've seen my videos, I put this on a lot of my food. I think it gives it a nice crunch and a little bit of flavor, and it just makes food more fun to eat. And it's so easy to throw together. I combine half a cup of sunflower seeds with half a cup of pumpkin seeds and a quarter cup of sesame seeds in a bowl. Then I season that with soya sauce. I add in some maple syrup for a little bit of sweetness, and I sprinkle over some smoked paprika for more depth of flavor. I give it all a good mix before spreading it out onto a lined baking sheet, ready to toast in the oven for about 10 minutes. At this point, I've removed the tofu from the oven and changed the temperature to 150. After 5 minutes, I flip it, and then I keep a close eye on them not to burn them. That's all my components done, and this meal prep should take about 2 hours, 10 minutes, or something like that if you stay focused and organized, and then maybe like another 15 minutes to load up the dishwasher and clean the food processor. And yeah, now that I've shown you how to make all these components, I'd like to show you also how to put them together into different meals the way I advertised in the introduction. So first of all, with the breakfast, I made the overnight oats, of course. You could also make a sandwich, for example, but with the overnight oats, I like to top them with a tablespoon of crunchy peanut butter, and then use those thawed berries that we did to give it a little bit of a tanginess. If you'd rather do like a breakfast sandwich, you could totally grab like a slice of bread, put some hummus on there, or our bean dip, as maybe we should call it, and put a little bit of kale on there and some of those seeds, and that's super yummy. You could also keep building on the sandwich to make it more of like a hearty lunch sandwich, and then I would put some of that marinated and baked tofu in there. If you had some sprouts on hand, you could also put those in there and then close it off with another slice of bread. Another thing I like to keep on hand, like the bread, to make meals out of this are some wraps. So if you wanted to make a wrap, I'd recommend putting some hummus on there, some of that lentil and pea salad, some of the massaged kale, and a couple of those harissa roasted carrots for some spice. And then of course I will sprinkle this with some seeds before I roll it up. Of course, a nice thing to do out of these types of salady components are bowls, and one that's super nice is to start with the quinoa salad, then add a dollop of hummus on there, some of the baked tofu, some kale, and then sprinkle it all with the seeds. Another idea could be to start with a base of the lentil and pea salad, then adding on some greens, some of the spicy carrots, a little dollop of hummus, and the seeds, of course. You could also combine all of the components to make a really decadent meal, except for the soup, of course. And when it comes to the soup, I love to have it just on its own with a slice of bread with some of the hummus spread on top. And if you want to add a little bit more greens, you could add some kale on there. Or if you want a little bit of crunch, sprinkle some seeds on the soup or on the toast. You could also have a really yummy snack by combining the harissa roasted carrots with some of the hummus and just eat it like that. Maybe you could also grab some fresh celery and just slice it up and add it for a little bit of crunch to dip into the hummus as well. And of course you can also use some bread to dip in the hummus for snacks also. I hope you've enjoyed this meal prepping with lots of different ideas, and remember that you can make it a little bit easier for yourself if you want to recreate this by using some of my tips. But yeah, I think there's so many yummy meals that you can make from these components, and I hope you will try at least some of them. As always, you can find all of the recipes in the description box, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care. Bye!